The Truth Girls.
Hi everyone, it's Sonia here. Well, I told you that I would tell you about my experience with quitting Kratom after 3 years, so that's what this video is going to be about. I tried to record this a couple times before, but I postponed putting it up because as I was doing the detox, things kept changing. So first of all, in a nutshell, this is what happened. You call this a detox? This is nothing. I mean, you on the internet complaining about your kratom detox, you're just a bunch of pussies. Wow, it's a beautiful day. Looks like a good day to get out there and serve the Lord. The hills of life with the sound of music, with songs they have sung for 1,000 years. Well, I might as well get back on the methadone. And if that doesn't work, I guess I'll get back on the Suboxone. And if that doesn't work, I guess I'll get back on the heroin. So, people say do a long taper, but I did a really short taper. I was tired of being dependent on it, honestly. I didn't feel like it was ruining my life, but it wasn't working exactly anymore, and I was tired of needing it, you know? The fact is it has some opioid or whatever properties, but in my experience, they're pretty mild. I know that some people from Big Pharma or the mainstream media don't want to hear that, but the reason I'm going to say this is because I have experience with real opiates, okay? So I have something to compare it to in terms of the effect and also in terms of the withdrawal. Okay, so I did a really quick taper and then I jumped off. And so what happened with the withdrawal effects that I got, I think the first day I started feeling a little bit achy and kind of edgy. The second day was the worst. I had a bloody pounding headache, and the headache was so bad, and it was radiating into my shoulders. However, I was able to drive my car and go to work and do all those things. And I felt really bitchy, but I was still functional, and I remember thinking, this is not real opiate withdrawal, which is extremely intense. Even when you're just taking a small amount. I mean, I remember when I first was using opioids and I didn't even know what withdrawal was, and I'd stop and I couldn't sleep at all. I had a runny nose, I had all kinds of symptoms and basically felt like crap. It wasn't like that. I was achy, but it was just in the muscles, not on the skin. I didn't have that I think I felt a little bit the burning feeling, but it wasn't like the Bengay cold water under your skin. I felt really slightly nauseous, but not with opiates where you're just glued to the garbage can on the floor all day because you can't even make it to the bathroom. I mean, it wasn't like that. It was just there were some aspects that were opiate withdrawal, but really, really mild. I didn't even have a runny nose or anything. Seriously, it was so after this week, okay, the first day that I had the bloody headache, the next day I was achy, and then it started to get better. And I've done it before, and it was kind of like that, a lot of anxiety, a little bit of achiness the first couple of days, and then it gets better. And I've done it before and gotten off it, and it was not a big deal. So after that week, I was like, okay, this is no problem. And the second week, I felt really good. Well, for the first few days, I felt fine, and I thought okay, I'm done, and praise the Lord, I'm free, and everything's good now, right? I was wrong. There is something about kratom which is different than other drugs or herbs, is that it has many different kinds of phytochemicals in it, many different properties. One of those properties is SSRI. Now, I have been on SSRIs, pharmaceutical ones, in the past, and I know what the withdrawal is like, which actually is very difficult. It lasts a very long time. And what happened was in the middle of the second week, I started feeling I was going into Wonderland. First I noticed the colors looked different, they looked overly bright, and the wheels on the cars, just things looked a bit trippy, And I started to feel a bit unraveled, but I was still kind of on a high. Actually, it was I was almost manic. I was cooking all this food for people at my church. I made so many meals, and I delivered it to all these people who had babies. And I was driving oh yes, when I went to leave, I forgot the map, I forgot the address. And I was like, it's fine, you know, I'm not going to worry about it. It's in God's hands, which is kind of cool. But anyway, I was driving and my son was like, you're lost. And I was like, oh, just kind of, you know, but I've got the Lord. And he's like, you need a GPS. And I was like, no, I don't need a GPS. God is my GPS, and God's going to get me to where I need to go. And actually he did. I was driving and it was like, oh, I think I'm going to go this way, and I'm going to go that way, and then I'm going to go that way. And I ended up right in front of the person's house. Like, I'm not kidding. So like part of that I think was actually the Lord helping me to be of service and deliver the food. But I was on such a high, you know. I'm still not really sure what the hell that was. But then after it started to unravel, I started to get Alice in Wonderland. I had this day of work. It was too intense physically. It was so much like demand. And I couldn't sleep at that point. That was the thing. I was up. I got 1 hour of sleep. I had to go to work. I had to do like intense physical labor. I came back, had a 2-hour nap. I had to go back to work for something else. And that was very intense again. And it was like very long. And at the end of that day, I felt like I was completely exhausted. And then it just started to spiral. And I went into like a horrible space mentally. Like I actually physically, like what happened, my throat started to feel really tight. And my sponsor told me, oh, it's emotional pain. But it started to radiate like all under my jaw and in my chest. I had like pain, and it was radiating out to my shoulders. And I felt like every little thing would stress me. My blood pressure would go way up and my chest hurt. And my sponsor kept telling me it's just emotional pain. It's going to get better. I cried all week. I cried and cried. I'm going to tell you something extremely cringy. This is like, I know this is weird, okay? But the pain that I was in physically at this point was so bad. I was like going out of my mind, and I was injuring myself. Like, I know it's an autism thing too, but it was like self-injurious behavior. Like I was hitting my legs like hard enough to leave bruises. So this went on for days, and I kept going to meetings, and I just, like, everything just set me off. And honestly, I felt like I was going to go into a meltdown. I actually told my sponsor, I said, I feel like I'm going to go into a meltdown. And in my experience, you can't avoid it. You can only postpone it. And I was trying to like just work through the emotional pain and be spiritual. And what happened is it just kept going and going, and it was getting worse and worse. Self-disclosure here. At the end of the week, like the pain was getting worse. And the whole week I felt like I was going to go into like, I was going to start screaming in public. Not screaming like, oh my God, blah, blah, but screaming in like an animal, like, you know, like my son does, you know. I felt like I was going to go into like a full meltdown, like in public, like throw myself on the floor, banging my head, like full meltdown. It felt really intense, and I was in a lot of pain. And I remember the last night, I was actually working again, and I was doing some stuff, you know, physically, and I felt like I had poison running through my veins. And I was on the phone with my sponsor, and I was telling her, I feel really screwed up, like really, totally, like my whole body feels screwed up. I feel like I have poison in my veins, I'm in pain, and I feel totally unhinged. And still, I think that she was telling me, like, you know, maybe this is just some stuff you need to work through. And I was like, I think it's withdrawal. Like, it's not like an opiate withdrawal, but I think it's something related to that, plus other stuff like stress. But this isn't even, I don't know, like, I felt bad like that before I ever touched the kratom. Yes, I had meltdowns, and I had that. But this was even more. I never felt like I had poison running through my veins. So, okay, all the details here, but whatever. Probably going to run out of footage. Anyway, I said, well, I'm going to just use a bit of kratom and see what happens. And I did. And what happened was all that physical stuff went away. All that was left was the tightness in my throat. And basically I was okay. So that kind of told me that the kratom was doing something. Maybe it was very mind-boggling. But I felt like a part of that was a kind of withdrawal, but like maybe because I'd been on it for so long. And my theory is that there's the opioid effect, which is very mild, which yes, you have some withdrawal, but it's not that hard to get off it. I'd been on it for a very long time, but at fairly low doses, and I think I was using it as an antidepressant, and I think I was like addicted to the SSRI part of it, I think, or whatever else is in it, but something else. That was not opioid withdrawal. That was something else. But I think it was withdrawal. I think that part like maybe leaves your system more slowly, and it started to kick in after about a week, you know, or a week and a half or something like that. Anyway, it was pretty intense. I wasn't expecting it. The weird thing was that after I was Googling Kratom withdrawal to see other people's experiences, and I found 2 people who had the same experience. First week, they're like, you're going to feel physically uncomfortable. Second week, you're going to feel fine. Third week, you're going to get hit with all this other stuff. And they described exactly like I said, the intense emotionality, pain, like emotional pain, but it's not really emotional. It's like something physical. But it's all like in here, you know? And feeling like you have poison running through your veins. So that's what happened. So then I did take a little bit of Kratom for a couple days. And after that, it hasn't been like 100% easy, but I feel like it's okay now. But I mean, I was really blindsided by that. And it's because like all anyone ever talks about is like the opioid effect or whatever. And anyway, believe me, I've done withdrawal from hardcore opiates, and this was something else. So that's what I want to tell you. It was a lot different this time than when I used it intermittently, like a couple times a week. I had no withdrawal if I discontinued, and done that many times. Even used it consistently for a short time, no problem when I quit. 3 years, I think I had like some kind of like psych med SSRI withdrawal from it. I'm not kidding. I actually felt really like traumatized after that week. I was like, what the hell just happened? One thing of note was that it would make my blood pressure go way, way up, and I found out after that that's also a thing with Kratom withdrawal. Like you get like big blood pressure spikes. So, you know, watch out for that. And so that's the story. I hope that's useful to you. And thanks for listening to me. And I'll see you next time.